I'm a supervisory special agent with the FBI here in Los Angeles. I actually sit in an office in Orange, California, which is just north of you guys in Irvine. I personally live in Irvine, and two of my kids go to Irvine schools. I've lived here since 2007, but what I'm going to talk about today is what made me become a special agent, and I'm going to give you guys some information on how to become a special agent if you're interested. If you guys have questions about some of the other jobs related to the FBI, I can certainly try to answer those as well. I am more partial to being a special agent since that's the job I've done for the last 21 years. But if you have other questions, hopefully I'll be able to answer those related to some of the other jobs that we have. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the rewards and challenges of being a special agent or just working for the FBI in general. And then at the end, if you guys have questions, I'll try to answer those as well. I did see one question at the very beginning about being part of CIRG, which is our Critical Incident Response Group. Might need a little bit more information about that in terms of what part of CIRG that you're talking about, but I'll try to answer that as well. Let's see here. I can't see your chat, so I'm going to go with the presentation. If you guys raise your hand or whatever with a raise hand option, I'll try to stop if you guys have specific questions. So I was born and raised in West Virginia. I went to grade school there, went to high school there, graduated high school second in my class, went to college at the West Virginia University, I had a BS in aerospace engineering. And then after that, I went directly into law school and got a law degree. Wanted to join the FBI right out of law school, but you guys are going to see in just a minute, the FBI requires a couple years at a minimum of work experience. So I went out into practice as an attorney. I practiced for about 3 years for the state of West Virginia, doing workers' compensation cases. Did a ton of hearings in front of administrative law judges, really good experience doing that. But as soon as I was able to do it, I reapplied to the FBI and was accepted. Getting into the FBI is a kind of a long process. I think I started in January of 1998 and didn't actually report to Quantico until May of 1999. So it was almost a year and a half process of getting in through the application process. The process is actually broken down into 3 parts. The first part is an online test that you can take at a testing center. And this does things like assess your personality and how you react to certain situations. And it scores kind of how you react to these situations. And if you do well enough on that test, you'll get invited to do an in-person interview. And in addition to that, you have to do a writing sample as well. If you get past that second phase, you go into what's called phase 3. And this is where they do the background check. And this is where they go out and talk to all your friends and family. And they'll do a background check basically from the time you were born up until the point that you're trying to apply to become an FBI employee. It also involves a polygraph, which, if you don't know what that is, it's a lie detector test, requires a drug test, and we're going to talk about more of that in a little bit. Anyway, so I went to Quantico in May of 1999. Back then, Quantico was about a 4-month process. Now it's almost a 6-month process. They've added a lot more to the curriculum than when I went through. There's a lot more blocks on cyber and other things related to terrorism, since that's a much bigger subject matter that we cover these days. Back in 1999, certainly there was terrorism, but it wasn't as big, as it was after September 11th, 2001. So right out of the academy, the way it works is you fill out a list of the top 56 field offices in the FBI, and you decide, you rank them 1 to 56. I was sent to Honolulu, Hawaii. It was actually number 4 on my list. I was completely surprised that I got Hawaii. Coming from West Virginia, was about as far away from West Virginia as I could possibly get and still be part of the United States. But it was a really good experience. Hawaii is a much smaller office than the Los Angeles division. Altogether, the Hawaii office at the time had about 86 special agents, and that include all of its offices in Maui, Saipan, and Guam as well as the Big Island. In Los Angeles, we have a little bit over 700 agents. And in 2007, I transferred from the Honolulu division up to Orange County here in Los Angeles, in Los Angeles' territory. When I was in the Honolulu division, I started out working drugs and organized crime. I worked that for about the first 3.5 years of my career. But my passion has always been computers and cyber related stuff. So when I was growing up, I built my own computers. I like to play video games. And in order to play video games, I always joke, you had to learn how to write certain files on Windows-based computers to get them run correctly. So that's what prompted me to become very interested in computers. And so when I transitioned out of drugs and organized crime, I started to work cybercrime. My primary focus was on digital forensics, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes. But one of the other things I did right away is I started working on national security computer intrusion investigations. So this is when foreign countries try to hack into other government computers, other company computers. And so we have a certain group of people who are dedicated to deal with those computer intrusions and try to perform investigations related to those events. We were talking a little bit earlier before we let you guys into the meeting room, but cyber has become a much bigger deal for the FBI. Back when I first joined the FBI, there was no cyber division. Right now, cyber is the #2 priority for the FBI, just behind terrorism. So it's become much bigger, a much more important focus of the FBI today. And I'm sure you guys go probably not 1 week without seeing in the news some sort of major hacking event that's occurred with some company. Oh, nope, that's not working. Let me go back up here, sorry. Okay, so qualifications to get in the FBI: have to be a US citizen. That's always been a requirement. That's not to say if you're born in another country, if you come here and you become a US citizen, you're still eligible. We have plenty of people from other countries that weren't born here that have become citizens over the years and have become FBI employees and certainly FBI agents as well. You have to be between the ages of 23 and 36. The 23 thing is really just to get you through college as well as get you a couple years of work experience. The 36-year cap really has to do more with your retirement. In order to get the full government retirement as a special agent, you have to serve for 20 years. The maximum you can be age-wise for being in the FBI as a special agent is 57. So they say 36 because that's really at the time of application. You have to be 37 maximum when you show up for the FBI Academy. Because when you hit 57, you hit mandatory retirement. They can extend you a year at a time depending on the needs of the FBI, but normally most agents retire at a maximum age of 57. So again, that's why the 36-year cap on the age. You have to have a bachelor's degree from a US accredited college or university. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. Must have 2 years of full-time professional work experience. So after you get out of school, go get 2 years of work experience. This becomes really important. I mentioned earlier about phase 2 where you go through that in-person interview, and also even in phase 1 where you're dealing with those situational scenarios. Those are the things that you're going to draw on. Whatever you do in that work and experience that you get in those 2 years, as well as the time before that, those are the things you're going to draw on to answer those questions for your interview. I've heard some really good answers from people, who served just regular jobs like a teacher or whatever it is. We've had one of my classmates in the FBI Academy was a first grade teacher, and he had some really great examples of how he dealt with students and really some difficult situations that he had, and he shared these with me once we got to the academy about this interview process that we all go through to become special agents. So that's really what that full-time work experience is for, is to kind of get you just getting used to working in an office environment, as well as to give you some examples to use for your interview. Let's see here. Have a valid driver's license and 6 months of driving experience. That kind of seems like a strange one. Here in California, we pretty much have to drive everywhere, but other cities like, say, New York, a lot of people don't drive. A lot of them either take taxis or they take the train, and a lot of them don't have driver's license. So in order to work for the FBI, you have to have a driver's license, because one of the things you'll pretty much be assured to get is a work car when you become an agent and get assigned to a field office. And you may not get assigned back to, say, an office like New York. You might get assigned to North Dakota or Texas, or someplace that has a lot of land where you have to do a lot of driving. So you have to have that driver's license and the experience before you're eligible to apply. All right, there we go. Meet the physical requirements. So in order to meet the physical requirements, there's a fitness test that you have to take. This typically includes pull-ups, push-ups, sit-ups. There is a 300-meter sprint and a 1.5 mile run. These requirements are all up on FBIjobs.gov. This test is very challenging. This is probably the one hurdle that a lot of people that want to become special agents find themselves not able to get over. This test is, like I said, challenging, and it's something you have to practice for. Even if you're in really good shape, this will test your fitness level for sure. I remember the first time I took this test, and this test is different than the one that I took back when I first got in the FBI. But when I took this most recent test, I remember joking with the fitness coordinator. I said, I don't know who designed this test, but they did an outstanding job, because it's no joke. It's a challenging test, but we're required to do this. Even agents like myself that have been in for 20 years, we still have to do this same fitness test every year. And that's why we have these fitness requirements. You also have to go through some medical testing before you get in as well, to make sure everything's good before you are allowed to go to the FBI Academy in Quantico. And the last thing is be able to obtain a top secret security clearance. Every FBI employee has a top secret security clearance. It usually consists of a few things. You fill out an application online that basically says every place that you've lived, all of your family, all of the jobs that you've had, all the places you went to school. And then this gets assigned out to a background investigator, and they will go out and interview a lot of people that you worked with, some of your family members. They'll interview your neighbors, and every 5 years, all of us in the FBI have to go through a reinvestigation, and they go out and do the exact same thing. They go and interview coworkers. They go and interview our neighbors. And so, they just want to make sure you're doing the right thing, and you're acting like you're supposed to as an FBI agent. And getting this security clearance, depending on what you work, is basically you have to have this to be able to access some of the information that you need to be able to do your job. Working in something like drugs and organized crime, you probably don't need to access top secret security clearance, but the FBI works on a lot of things, to include cyber, terrorism, and national security. And so in order to be able to work those topics, you have to have this type of security clearance, because that's the level that some of these documents that you need to review to do your job are going to be classified at. And let's see, there it is. All right, so yeah, if you guys are interested in any sort of FBI job, to include special agents, there's going to be more of that on FBIjobs.gov. Back when I applied, it was fill out an application and mail it in, but now it's all done digitally. And so you'll fill out your entire application online through FBIjobs.gov. They're pretty much always looking for special agents. That is a special recruiting class, because they're constantly trying to fill those jobs. I took some notes. There's about 6 16,000 applications per year for the special agent positions. I think in 1999, there was about 32,000 applications. And just to give you an idea, we probably accept about 900 people to become special agents. So it's a very small percentage of the people that apply that actually make it through and get invited to actually go to Quantico and become a special agent. So anything that you can do to set yourself apart in terms of your background and your experience. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what will help you set yourself apart as well if you're interested in doing this job. But just to give you an idea, nationwide, there's about 13,000 special agents amongst all of our 56 field offices and overseas deployments that we have. We have about 60 LEGAT offices, which are in foreign countries, and usually there's anywhere between 2 to 3 to 5 FBI employees in those offices, which are normally located in the embassies in whatever country they're setting in. As far as things that will set you apart in becoming an FBI employee and specifically a special agent, obviously we're always looking for diversity. That's one of the primary focuses of the FBI. One of the things that helps us do our job is gathering people from diverse backgrounds, whether that's people that have worked in a certain job or whether that's people that come from a certain culture. All of those things combined will actually help us do our job and actually help us put bad guys in jail, help us stop terrorist events. So that's really one of the primary focuses that we have is diversity. The other thing that we've really focused on lately is STEM. So science and technology, engineering, and math. My background was in engineering, but believe it or not, back when I came in, engineering wasn't one of the things we focused on. They focused more on law and accounting back then. So I actually came in through the law program and not through the engineering program. So if you guys are going to go to college and are going to get a degree and want to eventually become an FBI agent, I would highly suggest you look at something based in science and technology, because that's one of the highest levels that we're recruiting under. Another thing that really helps you with getting in is any sort of foreign language proficiency. We are always looking for people that speak foreign languages, just because we have to deal with basically every other country around the world. And we have language specialists that speak pretty much every dialect and every language around the world, because any case that we have could potentially touch on any other country, and we need people who can read and write and speak those languages from around the world. So those are some of the primary ones. Other things like military background, law enforcement background, those are certainly helpful. Those will typically fall into kind of what we call the broad category that's not really specialized, but all of those things are still useful, and those will definitely help you if you're trying to get this job as an FBI agent. So rewards for being a special agent, service to the country. I think that was probably one of the primary reasons that I took this job. I wanted to give something back to the country, wanted to give something back to the United States. And like I mentioned, I started off working as an attorney, but I've been doing this job for the last 21 years. And it's been an outstanding job every single day. I was talking to Nicole a little bit earlier, and it's one of these jobs where you come in and it's never the same. Every day is different. It never gets boring. So it's definitely something, and you always feel like you're making a difference in your job as well. You get to work with people that are like-minded. Most of us here are patriotic. Most of us here are A-type personalities, where we like to get things done, where we like to accomplish our goals. We also like to keep the community safe. So that's kind of what all of us, put all of our effort together, and that's what our goal is every single day that we come to work. Always learning. Yeah, absolutely. I learn something new every day, whether it's something related to cybersecurity or whether it's something to do with firearms or tactics or whatever it is. I learn something new every day, and that's again what keeps this job fresh and not something that you'll get tired of. Ability to travel. If you like to travel, you will get that opportunity. I think before COVID in 2019, I traveled to Indonesia to teach an advanced cell phone forensics class to some investigators in Indonesia. And then right after that, I traveled to South Korea to do an assessment of one of their laboratories for digital forensics. So the FBI liaisons with a lot of foreign law enforcement partners. And so we get that ability. And being in the Los Angeles division, we also have responsibility for Southeast Asia. So any event that happens in Southeast Asia that involves an American citizen or American interest, the Los Angeles division will be the one that has to deploy agents to deal with whatever that is. As an example, back in, I think it was 1996, I had to go to Dhaka, Bangladesh to deal with a terrorist event. I flew over there with about 24 hours notice. Got there and spent about 2 weeks in Bangladesh imaging cell phones and imaging computers and providing those copies to the people that needed them to try to figure out what happened. So there is definitely the ability to travel. And again, whether that's operationally or training purposes, that is something you definitely will have the option and ability to do. In addition to that, I travel quite frequently back to Quantico to teach. In fact, I think in about 3 weeks, I have to go back and teach a mobile forensics class to some of our new computer forensic examiners. And probably 3 or 4 times a year, I do that sort of thing. Specialized training. I know someone had asked about SIRG at the beginning. So SWAT, each field office has a SWAT team. I was on the SWAT team in Honolulu for 6 years. SWAT is part of SIRG. SIRG is a much bigger group that involves not just SWAT, but also crisis negotiation. It also involves some of the critical incident response entities, such as victim witness and UCERT, which is our dive team. And so SIRG is basically there to deal with any sort of critical incident. And getting involved in SIRG, as well as SWAT, it's really it's a collateral duty for your job as an FBI, either an agent or a professional support. It could be for SWAT, you pretty much have to be an agent. It's additional training and certifications that you have to go through to be SWAT trained and certified. Crisis negotiators do the same thing. They have to go through special training to become crisis negotiators. And then all of the other people that are related to SIRG, they get into that some way, shape, or form, whether that's in their own field office or whether they work out of headquarters. The FBI has a national SWAT team called the Hostage HRT, Hostage Response Team. And they are, it's quite a few teams on HRT, and it's about a 2-week tryout, very grueling. And most of the people that go and try out for HRT don't make it. Certainly not the first time they try out. It's kind of like trying out for the Navy SEALs, although they're not quite that hard. And it's a very specialized, very skilled group of guys. And these are the guys that will deploy to the really big events. Some of the examples of those are Waco and Ruby Ridge, and they also do some deployments overseas, like in Afghanistan and Iraq as well, to help support some of the FBI investigations that go on overseas. They're out there to protect those guys as well. A couple of the other programs that I've got listed here, UCERT, that's our dive team. If there's any sort of evidence that needs to be recovered that's underwater, they're going to be the ones to do it, whether that's, say, like a body recovery or digital evidence recovery. We had to use them during the San Bernardino terrorist attack. There was some intelligence that there was a hard drive that was potentially thrown in a lake. And so those guys actually went out and dove that lake and looked for it. They didn't actually find it, but they did find a bunch of other strange electronic equipment in that lake that we had to take a look at. CART, that's the computer analysis response team. That's the current team that I work on. So we deal with all of the digital evidence that the FBI seizes. That includes mobile devices, that includes laptops, computers, cameras, and if it's digital and can store data, that's what we do. The last one there, UC, and that's the undercover operations. And so we have agents who are specially trained to do undercover operations. Some of the examples of that, if you've ever seen the movie Donnie Brasco, that was back in the mob days. That was kind of one of our undercover operations that we did. There's several others that have been made into movies, but that's a highly specialized training as well. And that really takes a certain type of person to do that job also. As I mentioned before, this job's never boring. It's never the same. I'll come in one day thinking I'm going to get, these things done, and I don't even touch those things because something else comes up and I have to work on that for the day. So it's never boring. There's always crime, so we have great job security. Even during the pandemic, when a lot of other people were losing work and out of work, we still had to work. We're a 24/7 operation, and so we definitely are here all the time. And lastly, it's a cool job. I can't tell you how many times I've told people who I work for, and immediately follows is a 1-hour conversation about all the things that I do in my job. So I'm happy to share that with you guys today, but it's definitely something other people will be interested in. As I mentioned, there's not that many people that actually are special agents. So anytime you run into someone that has the job, other people are going to be interested in what you do. Okay, so challenges. Like I mentioned, there's no set schedule. It's sometimes hard to plan. Trying to plan vacations, trying to plan around your kids, schools and activities. Sometimes it's hard. Crime happens at all hours, and sometimes you get called out. I've been called out all times of the night, middle of the night, weekends, because sometimes things happen and you just have to go, and maybe you didn't plan on working that day, but that's what happens. You get called out and you have to do it. Like I mentioned earlier, I didn't plan on flying to Bangladesh in less than 24 hours, but I did, and it was there for a couple of weeks. But at the end of the day, it's very rewarding, and so when you're able to actually make a difference, it makes it all worthwhile. Physically taxing, like I said earlier, there's the physical fitness aspect of it. You also have to maintain proficiency in firearms, and this is something you always have to work at. You always have to go out and run several times a week at a minimum. You always have to keep practicing with your firearms to make sure that you're proficient. We have to qualify 4 times a year with firearms, and so we have to maintain that proficiency as well. And then lastly, sometimes the subject matter is hard to handle. You're responding to a terrorist event with, victims, responding to crime scenes, dealing with some of the material that you have to deal with sometimes. For instance, child exploitation cases. Sometimes those things are hard to deal with. So you kind of have to be mentally prepared to deal with those things in your job. And it's something you could be exposed to any day of your job, because you just never know what's going to happen, especially depending on what you do for the FBI. For instance, what I do, all of these things I could have to deal with, because I will get called to crime scenes. I will say, for instance, analyze victims' computers. I will definitely see objectionable material in terms of child exploitation material. So there's definitely some things that you have to have some mental strength in dealing with this job. All right, so that's all I have formally. I hope you guys have some questions. I hope I answered the question about SIRG. Let me see if I can get my...
Excuse me?
Yes.
This is kind of like a personal question, but
Sure.
I know there's like no height requirement, but I'm like pretty short. I'm only like 5 feet. So would that be like hard to perform like the duties of the special agent?
No, not at all. Really, that's a great question, by the way. There is no height requirement. So really, it's just about how strong you are. Like I said, during the physical fitness aspect, if you're in good shape and you have decent upper body strength, it doesn't really matter how how high you are. My wife, she's also a special agent. And I think she's 5'2", so not too much taller than you. So you definitely can do it if that's what you decide you want to do. Absolutely.
What kind of martial arts are you taught at the academy?
That's a great question too. So they don't particularly teach you martial arts. They teach you some boxing for sure. They teach you restraint holds. I think probably the most or the closest you could accumulate or associate it with a martial art would probably be either be Aikido or Jiu-Jitsu. Before going to the academy, that was one of the other things I did as a hobby. I was, in martial arts. I studied martial arts, well, at this point, my entire life practically, but I started it in 7th grade. By the time I reported to the academy, I had a black belt in Japanese karate in Shotokan. So, but any sort of martial art certainly will be helpful, but it's not required. They will definitely train you in arresting people and how to deal with non-compliant subjects when you have to arrest those guys.
Sorry, I don't want to make it hard for anyone to ask questions, but I just have one more question about the FBI Teen Academy.
Mm-hmm.
What's your advice to get into that? Because I know that's really competitive too.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about what sets you apart on your application. So we have got a few things. I should have mentioned that also. So we have the Teen Academy for sure. The other thing that we have after high school is we have paid internship positions over the summer, and during we also have interns that work kind of as a work study thing while they're in college. And one of the benefits of this as well, if you're interested in the program, is it will get you it'll get you your top secret security clearance, and it also gives you kind of an inside track to getting a job with the FBI. It helps you a little bit with the special agent position, but it definitely helps you a lot with positions other than the special agent position. Say, for instance, if you have a degree in computer science and you want to become a computer scientist for the FBI, if you go through the internship program in computer science, you got a pretty good chance of getting offered a job at the end of your internship when you get, say, to your senior year. But anything that you can do to set yourself apart, and it's those same things I talked about, like the STEM background. Obviously, having good grades for the Teen Academy is a great thing, and any other type of community service that you have that can kind of make you stand out from other applicants is going to help you with getting into that program.
I see. Thank you.
You're welcome. Other questions? Everybody's shy today.
Somebody asked, what are some of the majors that you recommend to pursue a career in the FBI?
So I think, any sort of science and technology, I think, is great these days. We definitely still recruit attorneys. We definitely still recruit accountants. We have positions available for both of those fields. Each field office has a chief division counsel, and underneath those chief division counsels, there's other attorneys. Those don't have to be special agents, but some of them are special agents that serve there. We definitely have people that do forensic accounting. So those are definitely some jobs that will help you. Anything related to a foreign language, again, is going to be important. Criminal justice is good, certainly. I think if I were going to choose, though, I would probably go with one of those science and technology jobs before I do criminal justice, just because it's going to help you stand out more. I just know what they're recruiting for right now, and I know that science and technology is a really big focus for all the people coming in right now. So if you go and do, say, something like computer science or even digital forensics. That's now a major kind of a sub-discipline of computer science in some colleges. That's a big focus for us right now because that's where we're seeing the biggest jump in need for what we have or what we need. Let me see here. Oh, there, I got the chat. Best majors, okay. So the paid internships, yeah, so that is there. If you look on the FBI jobs.gov site, I think the internship program link is on there. I don't know, I'm thinking normally that is for college. So I suppose, I don't know exactly if under 16, I guess if you went to college early, maybe you'd be okay. I'm not sure what the age requirements are for that. In terms of the paid internships. Normally it's people that are in college, which would normally put you above 16. Psychology, yeah, so psychology, a good question, and criminology as well. Both of those are good. We definitely have jobs in, well, specifically for psychology, we have our behavioral sciences unit back at Quantico, and each field office has a behavioral sciences agent who kind of deals with that sort of thing. So if you are interested in that, psychology is definitely something that would give you a leg up in terms of getting into one of those units. And criminology as well. I mean, any sort of background in criminal justice is going to be helpful in terms of doing the day-to-day job. But I will tell you, like, in terms of the criminology stuff, when you go to the FBI Academy, I had very little background in criminal justice because, again, my majors were in engineering and law. And certainly law has some criminal justice aspects to it, but that's only a small portion of what we do. But they teach you everything in the academy about how to do your job. Well, most everything. You learn a lot on the job as well, but that's just like every other job.
I have another question.
Sure.
Will being a minority help me get into the FBI or not really?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Like I mentioned, diversity is a big deal for us. And we always are looking to make as diverse a group of people in our organization as we possibly can. So yeah, absolutely, minority will help.
And this is like, this question sounds kind of weird, but like, does the FBI really like expect you to be like perfect in a sense where like they, because they interview like all your like friends and neighbors and stuff, and like,
No, that's a good question. No, they don't expect you to be perfect. You know, they do have a drug policy, and you can take a look at that. That's up on the FBI jobs site as well. You know, they're not expecting you to be perfect. What they're expecting you to be is honest. So when it comes time, you know, for the interview and the background, it's okay if you did some bad things in your past, but just be honest about it. And that's what I tell everyone that's looking to join the FBI. They want to make sure that the people that they're hiring are honest, because at the end of the day, we're the ones that are out there enforcing the laws, and we have to be honest when we do that. We have to be fair. So really, that's what they're looking for is honest people who are upstanding citizens and not perfect. No one's perfect.
yeah, I understand.
Great question, though. Wait, let me see the other. Normal day look like at the FBI? I'm not sure what a normal day at the FBI looks like, because like I said, every day is different. You know, some days you think you're going to come in, you're going to do, you know, paperwork, but then you get called out to do something. So there really is no, what I would call normal day. You know, like I said, I may have 2 or 3 things that I want to get done in a day. And if I get one of those done, I'm lucky because too many other things happen. The thing that I do day in and day out is I run a computer forensic lab. The FBI has regional computer forensics lab, and I'm the director of the one here in Orange County. And so I'm coordinating people going out on searches and coordinating people doing examinations and people going to testify in trials and all kinds of stuff. So my job is never normal. It's always something different every single day. And that really is the same for anyone that works for us. It's very challenging in a way because you have no normalcy to your day, but it's also very exciting because it never gets boring. Doing a minor in a language. Yeah, so the thing about the foreign language, yeah, I mean, it's if you do a minor in a foreign language, that's great. So they will give you a language test. And depending on how you score on that test, they'll give you a rating. Usually it rates from like a 1 up to, I think it's a 4+ or a 5 is the highest on the top end. And really, you know, depending on what language it is, it can be, it definitely will help you get in, but it may send you someplace, you know, where the need for that language exists. And I'll give you an example of that. So when I was going through the academy, one of my classmates spoke Mandarin Chinese. She, I don't think, had Los Angeles as one of her top offices, but because of the language and the need that the FBI had for the language that she spoke, she got sent to Los Angeles. And I forget where she wanted to go. I think she wanted to go to maybe San Francisco or something like that. But that may dictate where you go depending on your language. But it definitely will help you get in because, again, like I said, we're always looking for people with backgrounds in foreign language. And if you have an interest in a foreign language, you might as well do it. Yeah, actually, that's a great question. So yeah, you don't have to have a minor. Say, for instance, if you, you know, grew up in a family that speaks another language and you speak it well, you absolutely don't need a minor, and you're just going to have to take the test to show that you have a certain proficiency in that language. Yeah, so as long as you can pass the test, you're good.
Would a master's degree like make you more competitive, or is like a lot of work experience enough? Or
yeah, potentially master's degree might make you more competitive. You know, I think one of the primary purposes that I went to law school, or one of the primary reasons I went to law school, was to join the FBI. And so that's definitely, I think, made me more competitive. Like I said at the time, law was one of the programs or one of the fields you could come in to the FBI under. And so it definitely helped me having that law degree. So if you got a master's degree, it would absolutely make you more competitive. It's not 100% necessary. It's not a requirement, but it certainly will help you if you choose to get the master's degree. Yeah, they'll ask you, I'm going to answer that other question that Owen asked in just a second. Yeah, they'll definitely ask you which language test you want to take, and you'll take that test. Basically what they'll do is it's almost like a telephone interview, and you'll have a conversation in that foreign language with whoever your interviewer is. And then there's also, if that's for the speaking requirement, there's also a reading requirement if you choose to take the reading side of the language test. And then obviously you'll have to translate documents that are in a certain language that you're specialized in. What is the coolest thing that I've done in the FBI? Oh my gosh. Let me see. I've flown on Black Hawk helicopters. I've swam in Pearl Harbor and assaulted the side of a ship when I was on SWAT. Oh my gosh. Flown to foreign countries, got to meet with foreign law enforcement partners, got to teach other people how to do things in foreign countries. There's a lot of cool things that you get to do. I mean, it really just depends on what you're interested in. I will guarantee you that if you want to do this job, it will be something cool that you'll get to do. It's not every single day, but there's definitely plenty of stories that you'll have having a career as an FBI agent, or any FBI job for that matter.
So why is the acceptance rate so low?
Part of it has to do with how many positions that we have available. Because this job is so interesting, I think a lot of people, it's not one of these jobs where you have people that'll come in and then they'll leave after 5 years. A lot of the people that come in stay their entire career, which is at a minimum, like I mentioned, 20 years, and sometimes longer. For me, you know, I can't retire until I turn 50. I came in before I was about 26 years old when I came in. So I have to go more than 20 years before I'm even eligible to retire. So I'm holding one of those 13,000 positions for over 20 years. That's why there's so few people accepted, because really having an opening as a special agent, somebody has to leave the job to open up the job for someone else to come in. You know, that being said, there's always openings, whether that's through people who retire. The time that I came into the FBI, we were probably bringing in about 50 new special agents every 2 weeks into the academy. And so there was a big hiring push back then. Over the years since then, it's kind of gone up and down. Right now, they're really trying to hire a lot of people. And so by the time you guys get to the age where you're eligible to apply, I think there'll still be a pretty significant need for special agents. So if you guys have the background, I think you have a pretty good shot at getting in if you really want to do it. Let me go back up. So specific branch in STEM, types of math and science. I mean, really, it's kind of across the board on the STEM stuff, because, you know, we have people that do things in applied mathematics. We have a lot of people that work in computers, whether that's computer science or data scientists, data analysts, forensics examiners. There's a lot of other things in science. We have a lot of people that work in chemistry, physics, engineering. All of those backgrounds are going to be helpful. Just to give you an example, we have people that work in the laboratory that do DNA, that do weapons ballistics. You know, if a weapon is used in a crime, they'll take it out, they'll test fire it, they'll examine the ballistics of the weapon and determine whether or not that was the weapon that was used based upon whatever shell casing or round was discovered at the crime scene. So there's a lot of those science-based backgrounds that'll be really helpful in getting you into this job.
Is there a specific team that deals with international crime? Because I kind of want to focus on like terrorism and like Afghanistan and stuff, like places in the Middle
Yeah,
East.
absolutely. Another great question. So we have certain squads that work international terrorism, and depending on what field office you're in, you will have that extraterritorial responsibility. So like I mentioned, LA has responsibility for Southeast Asia. Other offices like New York and Washington field office have responsibility for Europe and the Middle East. So really just depends. I mean, our territory here in LA, we don't touch Afghanistan, but we do touch some of those countries that are pretty close by to that, like Bangladesh, like I mentioned. That's getting pretty close to Pakistan and Afghanistan. And then where we kind of stop, that's where the Washington field office and New York pick up in terms of their responsibilities as well. That being said, there's also what we call fly teams. And on those fly teams, their sole responsibility, or one of their main responsibilities, is to fly and deal with international incidences, you know, which is kind of a big scale event versus something a little bit smaller that the field office might have to deal with. Yeah, so there's definitely teams that you can get on once you're inside the FBI that will kind of get you into that realm of international terrorism and responding to those types of events. STEM majors are helpful. The question is, are STEM majors useful for special agents or only for FBI scientists? They're actually helpful for everyone. You know, depending on what you're investigating as an agent, if you are working, say, cyber intrusion investigations, any sort of background you have in computer science or computer programming or something like that's absolutely going to help you out in doing your job as a special agent. If you don't have that background, that's okay. If you still want to do those types of investigations, we have our own training program that we can send you through. But any sort of background that you have is going to help you, you know, in the long run in terms of getting you up to speed a lot faster. Even things like chemistry and physics or biology or anything like that, that can still be helpful as an agent as well. It's amazing what you will run across. Even some of our guys that do, say, like organized crime or drug investigations or things like that, you might run across like an organized crime individual who has stolen some rare art. And if you have a background in art, that may be helpful in you doing your job. Anything that you can touch on in your life before you became a special agent or an FBI employee is going to be helpful in doing your job. I constantly touch on my background in engineering. It may not specifically be the aerospace aspect of it, but engineering has helped me along the way. It just helps me the way I think as an engineer in doing my job as an agent and as a computer forensic examiner as well.
What was like, this is like the kind of team I think I want to join. Like I was reading like some article online, like what was the team that was flown to San Francisco right after 9/11 for training? Do you know?
Oh my gosh, right after 9/11, a lot of us flew places after 9/11. Not really sure which one you're talking about, but there are teams that do all kinds of things. So we have teams that do, SWAT, for instance. Our SWAT teams get flown all over the place. If there's a big event and they need to deploy SWAT teams to, say, like Florida, the Los Angeles SWAT team may be sent to Florida. Give you another example. Next year, the Super Bowl is going to be here in Los Angeles. Our SWAT team, and as well as lots of other SWAT teams and crisis negotiators from around the country, will be at that event because that's a big event and that's a big target for terrorists. And there's a lot of security and a lot of planning that goes into something like the Super Bowl. Another event that's coming up in a couple of years is the Olympics here in Los Angeles. There's a lot of planning and coordination that goes on with that as well. So a lot of these teams, a lot of these specialized teams get deployed around the country. And for that much around the world to deal with some of these events also. We even send agents to, assuming it happens this year, to the Tokyo Olympics. We send agents and FBI personnel to all the Olympics, regardless of where they are, to help with the coordination and the security around those events, and certainly related to the U.S. athletes when they're there.
Thank you.
Okay, so the next question is, when you become a special agent, do they divide you to investigate specific crimes? Yeah, so they do. But the great thing about this job is, like I mentioned, when I first got out of the academy, I had a background in law and I had a background in engineering, and they put me on a drug squad. I had no background in drugs, no background in organized crime. But I learned how to do the job. It was really fun. That's an exciting job to do. I was mentioning before you guys got invited in, I would come into work sometimes 6 o'clock in the morning and not get home until after midnight, 6-7 days a week doing drugs and organized crime. You can do that for a certain period of time and it's a lot of fun, but it gets tiring after a while. And so after that, I kind of transitioned over into the cyber realm and doing computer intrusion investigations and digital forensics. But but the great thing is with this job, there's so many different things that we do. If, for instance, you get assigned to do a job doing drug investigations or white collar crime, that doesn't mean you're stuck doing that your entire career. You have the opportunity to move around within the FBI. So if you're interested in doing national security or you're interested in doing counterterrorism or cyber, you will have that opportunity to do that. Even in the small field offices, you should be given that opportunity to move around as openings happen, and you should be able to transition over. So yes, you will get assigned, but you do definitely have the opportunity to move around as well. How dangerous is your job? Depends. Really depends on what you do. I know you guys probably saw about a month or so ago, we had a couple agents die in Miami. They were serving a search warrant related to child pornography cases. So the job can be dangerous. I've served hundreds of search warrants in my career. And the thing is, every one of them is dangerous. You just don't know how someone's going to react when you're knocking on their door at 6 o'clock in the morning. And I can tell you, that's a life-changing event for those people when the FBI shows up at their doorstep and you're not really sure how they're going to react to that. So it's definitely dangerous. But that's why we have all the training, and that's why we take all the precautions that we do when we're doing our job. I would say our job certainly is dangerous, but I don't think it's more dangerous than being a regular police officer. I think one of the most dangerous jobs you can have is someone like the California Highway Patrol, where you're pulling someone over. You have no idea what that person's doing in that car. And you're there by yourself most of the time, at least with us in the FBI agent job. At a minimum, we have another person with us. And most of the time when we're going to serve a search warrant, we're taking a team of 10 to 15 people with us to serve that search warrant. So we try to minimize the danger when we do our job. Other aspects of the job can be a little bit more dangerous, whether that's being on the SWAT team or HRT, the hostage rescue team. Those tend to be a little bit more dangerous. But again, we take precautions and we try to be as safe as possible. Yeah, so the next question is it okay if your work experience is something that is related to your major, but not necessarily actually investigating crime? Absolutely. They just want you to have some work experience. And again, that's, they want you to have some real life experience dealing with other people, talking to other people, working in an office environment. Or whatever that job may be, whether it's in an office or outside of an office. They just want you to have that experience to draw off of. If you hire someone right out of college, I think what they found is all they know is their school. All they know is high school and college and whatever they did growing up. They don't have any real, assuming they have a normal, childhood and normal high school and college, they don't really have a whole lot to draw on in terms of working with other people and dealing with difficult situations. So I think that's really the reason they want to have that work experience. And it doesn't really matter what it is necessarily. I worked as an attorney. There's other people I know that had majors in certain things and never really worked in that major. They went and got a job somewhere, got the work experience that they needed, and did well enough on the interview to get hired. So it doesn't necessarily have to be related to your major.
What languages are like in really high demand, like just at the moment?
So any of the Middle Eastern languages for sure. Chinese for sure, Russian for sure. Trying to think. Yeah, those are probably the top ones that I can think of. I know they're always looking for those. The other ones that are going to be in high demand as well are any obscure languages, like any obscure dialects to a certain language. I see canvases for that stuff all the time. Some of these dialects I've never even heard of until I see the email. So any of those are absolutely going to be in demand if it's some off dialect to a certain language. But those major ones are the ones that definitely we're looking for primarily.
What about like Arabic or like Farsi?
Yeah, those absolutely. Always looking for Arabic and Farsi.
Okay.
For sure. May you please tell us more about undercover operatives? Yeah, so undercover is interesting because basically what it is it's a special agent who is trained to do they're going to be put in a scenario or be put in a place where they're having to act as someone else. Normally that's acting as another criminal, but it could be something as simple as acting as the wife of someone else or the husband of someone else who may be involved in a crime, who's cooperating with the FBI. So these people have to be actors and they have to be really good actors. Because unlike, if you're a bad actor in a movie, people just won't see your movie. If you're a bad actor as an undercover, it could get really dangerous really fast. So the guys that do this stuff and the gals that do this stuff, they're really good at what they do. They're really convincing. If you have a really good personality, and are very convincing, then that might be the job for you. I always like to joke, to be an undercover, you have to be a really good liar. Because that's exactly what they're doing. They're living another life. And whether that's on a short-term thing where it's like a 1 or 2 meeting type thing, or a deep undercover thing where they're doing something for long-term, you know, they have to be really good at that job, and they have to be really good at living that life that's not an FBI agent, and whatever that might be, whether that's a drug dealer or a, you know, a hacker or whatever it might be. They have to be really convincing and proving that they're able to fit in with these people that they're interacting with. Can be dangerous. What are the different crime divisions that you can be placed into as a special agent? So the primary ones are counterintelligence, counterterrorism. And terrorism actually has 2 types. There's domestic and international. Cyber, and then there's a general criminal division. And criminal division includes things like bank robberies, white collar crime, child pornography investigations, organized crime, fraud. The criminal is kind of all the things that you would think a criminal cases would be that the FBI works. Believe it or not, the FBI doesn't work too many homicides. Homicides are primarily a state crime. There are certain instances that the FBI will investigate homicides, but normally that involves being on federal land, like an Indian reservation or a military base, or if it involves a U.S. citizen that happens overseas. One of the cases that I worked on, I had to go to Bali, Indonesia, for a U.S. citizen that had been murdered. And so I flew over there and did some phone extractions and copying some hard drives from a laptop to support that investigation. But those are the primary divisions that the FBI has for the different branches of the things that we investigate. Any other questions?
Oh, if none of the students have any other questions, I was just wondering if I had trouble. I had the wrong login link at the beginning, and I'm the historian for the PTA. And I was wondering if you could show your opening slides so I can document it for the PTA. That's okay.
Sure. Can you see that? Let me get this out of the way. Let me go back to the opening.
Is this the okay. Is this the opening? Okay. That one. Okay, I got that one. Okay. Okay.
I actually have one more question. What is your advice for me right now to prepare for the FBI?
Study hard. Yes, study hard, start working out. Absolutely. You know, like I said earlier, you know, one of the biggest challenges, I think, people coming into the FBI, we have a lot of people that have great backgrounds, but one of the biggest hurdles that people have is getting through that physical fitness requirement. So start running, start doing push-ups, start doing sit-ups. Those are the things you can make. That's something that anyone can do as long as they work hard at it. And I think if you start working on that now, it'll be much easier when it comes time to do that.
Thank you.
Well, I thank you guys for the time and allowing me to speak to you guys today. And I appreciate all the great questions that you guys had. I definitely encourage you, if you're interested, you know, I have no regrets doing this career. It's been, you know, an outstanding job. I've met a lot of great people doing this, not just here in the US. I've met a lot of great people overseas as well. And there's a lot of great people in the FBI working every day to keep you guys safe. So if that's something you're interested in, I would highly encourage you to seek that out. And again, go to FBIjobs.gov. And if you're interested in getting an early start, I know one of you guys asked about the Teen Academy. Definitely take a look at that. Definitely take a look at the FBI internship program as well once you get into college. And then eventually, once you get through both of those, if you do that, or even if you choose not to do that, take a look at joining the job later on once you get out of college.
Can
Thank
you
you,
show the one
Steve.
after? Sorry.
Hi. Thanks, Steve. Do any of you guys have any other questions? Hopefully you guys learned so much. If you haven't filled out the little checkout form, I put the QR code, the link in the chat box, and then the QR code was on the last slide. So when that goes up again, but if you guys don't have any questions, thanks for stopping by, and hopefully you guys learned some awesome stuff and maybe some future FBI agents in our hands. Thanks, guys. Thank you so much for presenting.
You're
Definitely
welcome.
Interesting, and I think they learned a lot.
I hope so.
Let's see. Okay. Well, thank you again, and thanks for taking your time. It sounds like you guys have crazy schedules, so definitely really appreciate you taking out the time of your day, fighting crime to come and speak to
Absolutely.
our students.
Yeah, one of our job is public outreach, so that's absolutely
nice.
Glad to do it.
All right. Are you good, Rachel, or do you have any questions or anything for him? Are you good, Rachel? Do you need anything else from the presentation? Because once I end the meeting, I think it'll close for everyone.
Oh, I was on mute. Oh, I was on mute. Oh, yeah. I think I got all of the ones. I didn't realize I was on mute. Yeah, I think I got all the ones that I missed. I had trouble. I had the wrong link at the beginning. It wasn't working. So.
Okay. Perfect.
Yeah.
All righty. Well, thank you
Okay,
both.
thanks.
And then have a good rest of your day.
Thank you. We'll see you guys.
Thank you.
Bye. Thanks
Bye.
again. We appreciate
Sure.
it.
Bye.
Bye.